that they can get food all the way from Fresno County up north. It's still in California, but it's further than the food that's grown south of us in Mexico. Local food being from the state, from as far away as Fresno County. So that's just something to keep in mind. Yes, agriculture is important to the economy of our nation and our state, but there are problems still with that system, which we'll talk about. According to the most recent census, the United States, the land area of the United States, the part of the United States that's covered with land and not water, so habitable ground, it's 9.15 times 10 to the 12 square meters. That's the total land area. Of that total, 8.87 times 10 to the 12 square meters of that are considered rural, so countryside. The difference between 9.15 and 8.87 amounts to 3% of the land that is not rural. And the opposite of rural is urban, cities, and city-like areas. And if then you look at the number of people living in rural areas versus urban areas, almost 81% of all U.S. people live on only 3% of U.S. land. That's the rural-urban divide. You know, the country and the city. There's country folk and there's city folk, and the city folk don't want to see country-like activities in their backyard. That's the rural-urban divide. Yet they rely upon those country folk to grow them their food, because that's where the food is grown and has to ultimately end up in the cities to feed the masses. That threatens our ability to feed our population here, and also it's not just an issue in the U.S., it's an issue worldwide. So I'm going to move on to it. So we spoke a little bit about the beginning, growing the food and having land to grow it. Then once you have the food, the very end is a problem too that we need to resolve. And I'm not going to follow the order of that, food system map. I'll jump around a bit. Food waste. You have food on your plate. Eat it, because there are hungry people elsewhere in the world, and isn't it a shame to throw it out? If you're not going to eat it, don't put it on your plate to begin with, and don't buy it to begin with, and don't cook it to begin with. This data here is from the United States government agency called the Environmental Protection Agency. And according to the EPA, in 2010, municipal landfills were 21% of the waste that ended up in a municipal landfill was due to wasted food. Food waste contributes to food insecurity. If we're worried about the carrying capacity of our planet, shouldn't we make use of the food that we grow? Shouldn't we make sure that we only grow what we need and make sure the food we grow gets to those who need it? According to that 2010 Environmental Protection Agency report, 33 million tons of food were dumped in U.S. landfills. 33 million tons of food. That's 200 pounds of food per person per year dumped in the trash and ending up in a landfill. This is a travesty in many ways. One way in which it's a travesty is, okay, that food, if it was still edible, and much of it is, if all of that food could have been diverted from the waste stream and used for food to feed people, it would have been able to feed 50 million people. Even if a fraction of that food could have been diverted from the landfill fed, maybe 10 million people. But instead it ended up in the landfill. To get the food on the plate to begin with, that amount of food accounts for 1/4 of all of the fresh water used in the United States. So that's a waste of our water resources as well, by growing food, using our water just to throw it in the trash. And then once it's in the landfill, as it's decomposing, it breaks down and releases gases, including methane, which is a greenhouse gas, which is 20 times worse a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. And a greenhouse gas, as you know, probably, accumulates in the atmosphere and prevents heat from escaping the planet. So our planet is acting like a greenhouse, warming our planet more and more and more, which is harmful in many ways. So we're wasting water growing this food just to throw it out, and it's contributing to warming our planet. And that food could have been used to feed people. Rather than grow food just to throw it away, there are various ways to try to resolve that particular problem, food security issue problem. One is to reduce the amount of food that's grown so that you only grow what you need. If there's waste, well, one reason why there's waste, one very large reason why there's waste, is during the distribution phase of the food in the grocery stores. Grocery stores don't just stock their shelves to feed to have exactly the amount of food they need to sell to their customers. They overstock the shelves. They overstock the shelves with processed foods, and they overstock the shelves with foods that have shorter shelf lives, like produce and meat and breads and all of that. And they do this because people go into a store and they're wowed by a bright store filled with, shelves just stacked with food. You go into a store that has empty shelves and it kind of looks sad and depressing. And they don't make as good sales. They make sales when they overstock. But they do that intentionally, and it results in intentional waste. And all of those consequences that go along with intentional waste. Using up our water, heating our planet, not feeding people who need it, because instead we're overstocking the shelves here. So that practice has to change. If there's excess food, it should be used to feed the hungry. One way to reduce source reduction is to change people's habits as well. Not just the food stockers' habits, but individual habits. You get an apple, and it has a little blemish on it. Maybe there's even a worm inside of it. You just throw it out. Don't get a knife first and cut it off to see how much damage was done by that blemish. Often it's just cosmetic and has nothing to do with there even being a worm inside at all. But even if there was a worm inside, just cut it off and eat the rest. It reduces food waste. It's the responsible thing to do. And not only is it okay to eat food that looks blemished, but if you go to a farmer's market or a grocery store and they say the food is organic, but it looks beautiful, blemish-free, not a single grub or slug, not a single little problem, I don't believe it's organic. Organic food is blemished food. And it's a sign that you're eating something that's of higher quality, in my opinion. So don't throw it out. Cut the worm out and eat the rest. Learn to share. All right, then if you still have food left, okay, what do you do with the core? Or the part that you cut off? Or something that really is too blemished? Don't immediately dump it in the trash to end up in the landfill to warm up our planet. If you have animals, feed the animals with it. I have one little example. Okay, I'm not a vegetarian. I eat chicken.